In northern Thailand, there are roads no map dares to show. They appear only at dusk, only to those who hesitate, only to men who have already walked away from someone once before. This is not a story about a woman who hunts. It is a story about a woman who waits. And once you follow her, the road never lets you return the same way again. Chapter 1. The road that doesn't exist on the map. No one in northern Thailand ever says the name of that road out loud. People only mention it in hushed voices, just loud enough for the listener to hear, as if speaking too clearly might allow the road itself to listen. They call it then and Phi, the road of spirits. Somchai did not believe in ghosts. At least, not until that night. The drinking ended later than usual. By the time he left the small town and drove back toward home, darkness had fully settled over the mountains. He wasn't drunk, not enough to lose control, but just enough for his thoughts to drift. Just enough for unease to creep in quietly. At first, everything felt normal. His headlights swept across tall trees lining the familiar road, mist clinging low to the ground. But after one curve, Somchai sensed something was wrong. The road ahead was narrower. Not damaged, not collapsed. It felt unfinished, as if it had never been meant for frequent travelers. The asphalt slowly turned into dark red dirt, uneven and scattered with stones. The forest on both sides grew thick, swallowing the reach of his headlights after only a few meters. Somchai eased off the accelerator. His heartbeat slowed unnaturally. He glanced at the GPS. The screen went black, then flickered back on, endlessly searching for a signal. A message appeared. Location unavailable. That's strange, he muttered. This road wasn't on any map. He was certain of that. Yet when he tried to turn around, the steering wheel felt heavy, unresponsive. Each attempt to change direction only revealed more darkness ahead. Behind him, the road seemed to vanish, replaced by mist and trees. The air grew cold, unnaturally cold. A sweet, overpowering scent filled the car. Jasmine, too strong, the kind used in temple offerings at night. Goosebumps spread across his arms. Instinct warned him that he hadn't simply taken a wrong turn. Through the thick fog ahead, Somchai noticed a figure standing motionless by the roadside. He slammed the brakes. His headlights shone directly at the figure, but the light seemed to be swallowed. All he could see was the silhouette of a woman standing with her back turned. Long hair falling straight down her back, perfectly still. Somchai's heart pounded. What he didn't know, what he could never undo, was that the moment he stopped the car, he had already entered a road that was never meant for the living. Chapter 2. The Woman by the Roadside. Somchai sat frozen behind the wheel, both hands still gripping it, though his fingers had gone stiff. The woman stood only a few meters ahead of his car, yet it felt as if she existed somewhere far away, at a distance that could not be measured by steps. She slowly turned around. The moment the headlights brushed across her face, Somchai forgot how to breathe. She was beautiful in a strangely old-fashioned way. Her skin was pale, unnaturally smooth, lacking the warmth of a living person. Her eyes were long and dark, deep enough that they seemed to swallow light rather than reflect it. Long black hair fell neatly over her shoulders, untouched by the damp mist of the forest. She wore a traditional Thai silk dress, the kind Somchai had only ever seen in faded photographs from his grandmother's time. The fabric was spotless, no dirt, no dust, despite the muddy red road beneath her feet. "You're lost," she said. Her voice was soft, calm, neither loud nor quiet, yet it reached Somchai clearly, as if spoken directly into his ear. He suddenly realized the car windows were still closed. This road doesn't lead out. Somchai swallowed hard. His throat felt dry, his heart pounding painfully against his ribs. He didn't understand why he hadn't driven away. Instead, his hand moved on its own, lowering the window just a little. Who are you?" he asked, his voice trembling. The woman tilted her head slightly. The movement was slow, fluid, almost too smooth to feel natural. She smiled, but the smile never reached her eyes. "I'm just someone who knows the way," she replied. "Men who pass through here always need guidance." A heavy scent drifted into the car. Jasmine, thick and sweet, enough to make his head spin. It wasn't perfume. It smelled like the floral garlands placed at temples during late-night offerings. "Are you trying to get home?" she asked. Somchai nodded without thinking. The moment he did, she stepped back and raised her hand, pointing down the dark road behind her. "Follow me," she said, "before it gets any darker." Somchai glanced at his watch. The second hand wasn't moving. His phone screen had gone black, even though the battery had been nearly full. Something inside him screamed that this was wrong. But another part of him, tired, heavy, unwilling to think, trusted her voice completely. He released the brake. The car rolled forward slowly. The woman walked ahead of the headlights, her movements graceful, unhurried. No matter how slowly Somchai drove, she always kept the same distance, never swallowed by the beam of light. And all the while, he failed to notice something deeply unsettling. There was no sound of her footsteps touching the ground. Chapter 3. The Village Without Children. The dirt road ended abruptly at the entrance of a village. Two old wooden pillars leaned toward each other like tired sentinels, their surfaces carved with ancient Thai symbols worn nearly invisible by time. The woman stopped and turned to look at Somchai. "We're here," she said. Somchai turned off the engine. The silence pressed down on him immediately, thick, heavy, unnatural. Ahead stood a village of traditional stilt houses, raised above the ground, their wooden walls darkened with age. The roofs were old, yet strangely intact, as if decay had simply stopped halfway through its work. The first thing Somchai noticed was the absence of sound. No dogs barking, no insects singing, no wind moving through leaves. Only dim oil lamps glowed inside the houses, casting sickly yellow light that reminded him of the eyes of the ill. The woman stepped into the village. After a brief hesitation, Somchai followed. With every step he took, his footsteps echoed loudly against the wooden walkways. Hers did not. Villagers began to appear, mostly elderly women, thin, silent, dressed in dark traditional clothing. They stood beneath the houses, watching Somchai pass. Their eyes held no curiosity, no hostility, only emptiness. Somchai lowered his head politely, greeting them out of habit. No one responded. That was when he realized something deeply unsettling. As he walked deeper into the village, there were no children, no toys beneath the houses, no laughter, no small footsteps running across the wooden floors. Even in the poorest villages, this was impossible. "This village," Somchai said carefully, trying to keep his voice steady. "Are there no children here?" The woman slowed her pace slightly. "There are," she answered. "They're just not here." The reply explained nothing, yet it sent a chill straight through him. They stopped in front of a stilt house larger than the rest. The wooden stairs creaked loudly beneath Somchai's weight. The scent of jasmine grew stronger as he climbed, mixing with the smell of old wood and long-burned incense. "You should stay here tonight," the woman said. "The forest roads are dangerous after dark." Somchai wanted to refuse, but his throat tightened, and only a silent nod came out. Inside the house, the air felt heavy. Along the walls hung dozens of white cotton strings, the kind used in traditional Thai rituals to call wandering spirits home. Every string had yellowed with age, and tied to each one was the name of a man. Somchai's chest tightened. In that moment, he understood something terrifying. He was not the first man to lose his way into this village. Chapter 4. The First Night in the Spirit Village. Night fell faster than Somchai expected, so quickly that he couldn't remember when daylight had disappeared. Inside the stilt house, a single oil lamp flickered in the corner, its weak flame trembling as cold air slipped through the gaps in the wooden walls. The woman had already left. No footsteps. No farewell. The house felt unbearably empty. Somchai sat on an old woven mat, his back pressed against a wooden pillar. The scent of jasmine lingered in the air, stronger than before, mixed with damp wood and incense that had burned too long and too often. He tried to calm himself, telling himself it was exhaustion, alcohol, imagination. Then he heard it. Creak, creak. The sound was faint, wood under slow pressure. It came from outside, beneath the house. Somchai held his breath, straining to listen. Creak, creak, creak. Someone was walking below. He stood and moved carefully toward the wall, peering through a narrow gap between the planks. In the pale moonlight, shadows drifted beneath the house. Women. They were barefoot, their heads hung low, long hair spilling forward to hide their faces. What froze the blood in Somchai's veins was the way they moved. Their necks bent sharply to one side, at an angle no living body should hold. Each step dragged forward in the same slow rhythm. No voices, no glances toward one another. They circled the house. Once. Then again. Somchai stumbled backward, his heart slamming against his ribs. He barely dared to breathe, terrified that the smallest sound would reveal him. Then the footsteps stopped. Silence crashed down like a heavy curtain. Knock, knock. A gentle tapping echoed against one of the wooden pillars. Slow, deliberate. Knock, knock, knock. Somchai's eyes locked onto the door. The handle began to tremble. Even though there was no wind, sweat streamed down his spine as he backed away. Then a familiar voice spoke. "Can't sleep?" The woman's voice. Soft, calm, close, far too close. Somchai spun around. She was standing inside the house, directly behind him. There had been no sound of the door opening, no footsteps on the stairs. The oil lamp illuminated her face. For the first time, Somchai truly saw her eyes, dark beyond darkness, hollow, as if they had no bottom. Her smile stretched wider than before, her lips parting just a little too much. "The first night is always difficult," she said gently. "But you'll get used to it." She turned and walked away. As she passed, Somchai looked down at the floor. Beneath her feet, there was no shadow. In that moment, he understood. Tonight, he was not the only one awake. Chapter 5. The Warning of the Old Monk. Somchai did not know when he had fallen asleep. When he opened his eyes, pale dawn light filtered through the cracks in the wooden walls. The oil lamp had gone out long ago, leaving only the lingering smell of old incense hanging heavily in the air. His body felt heavy, as if he had just recovered from a long fever. Images from the night before blurred together, women with twisted necks. Soft knocking, a voice whispering too close to his ear. Then he heard a quiet cough. Somchai froze. An old man sat cross-legged in the corner of the house. He wore a faded saffron robe, threadbare and darkened with age. His body was thin, his back slightly hunched, his face deeply lined, as if carved by time and in spoken fear. Somchai was certain of one thing. The old man had not been there last night. "Don't be afraid," the monk said, his voice hoarse but steady. "I am not what you saw in the dark." Somchai swallowed. He wanted to ask who the man was, but no sound came out. "You followed a woman in the forest, didn't you?" the monk continued, his eyes fixed on Somchai. Slowly, Somchai nodded. The monk sighed, a long, weary breath, as though he had witnessed this moment many times before. "Listen carefully," he said. "In this land, there is a rule passed down for generations. Men must never follow a strange woman after nightfall." Somchai felt a chill creep through him. "Especially," the monk added, his tone grave, "a beautiful one." The old monk pointed to the floor. Somchai looked down, and his breath caught in his throat. Dust lay thick on the wooden boards, yet a line of footprints was clearly visible. They were small and narrow, like those of an elderly person. Every single one of them faced the wrong direction. The toes pointed inward, toward the center of the room. The heels pointed outward. "She didn't walk in," the monk said quietly. "She walked out from here." Cold spread along Somchai's spine. "I was once the abbot of a nearby temple," the monk continued. "Men like you, I have seen many." "Where are they now?" Somchai whispered. The monk was silent for a long time. Then he stood. "Do not stay here after sunset," he said. "And if you hear your name called in the forest, do not answer." With that, the monk stepped out of the house. Somchai rushed after him, but when he reached the stairs, the old monk was gone. Only damp earth remained below, marked by bare footprints facing backward, leading straight into the forest. And Somchai realized something horrifying. Perhaps the monk was no longer among the living either. Chapter 6. The Truth About the Woman. After the old monk vanished, Somchai no longer had the courage to remain inside the stilt house for even a moment. Morning light had arrived, yet it brought no comfort. Instead, the village appeared clearer and far more disturbing. He stepped outside. The villagers were still there, standing silently beneath their houses, watching him with empty eyes. No one stopped him, no one asked where he was going. It was as if they already knew how this would end. Somchai followed the scent of jasmine. The fragrance led him to the house where the woman had disappeared the night before. The wooden door stood slightly open. Inside, the room was thick with dust, untouched for years, abandoned long before his arrival. There were no signs of anyone living there. On the central wall hung an old portrait. The wooden frame was cracked and rotting. The image inside faded to yellow-gray. Somchai stepped closer, his heart pounding. It was her. The same long hair. The same deep eyes. The same faint smile that never reached them. Beneath the portrait was a line of handwritten text in ancient Thai script. Somchai read slowly, each word weighing heavily on his chest. BE 2479. A woman named Malai died beneath the western cliff. Body never recovered. Somchai staggered back, his throat tightening. Malai. The name echoed in his mind like a call. Then he heard a whisper behind him. So you've seen it. He spun around. The woman stood just inches away. Cold radiated from her body. This time, something was different. Her skin was paler. Dark bruises bloomed along her neck and arms. The scent of jasmine was overwhelming, almost suffocating. I never meant to hurt you, she said softly. I just don't want to be alone. Somchai's gaze dropped to her hands. Her skin had begun to discolor, mottled and dark, like a body that had spent too long beneath water. Do you know, she whispered, what a woman becomes when she dies wronged in the forest? She didn't wait for an answer. She becomes the road. Outside, the wind howled through the trees. The wooden walls trembled. From deep within the forest came overlapping voices, men's voices, calling out. Layered and distorted, as though echoing across decades. In that moment, Somchai understood the truth. The woman did not guide travelers. She was the path that led men astray. Chapter 7. The Missing Men. Somchai left Malai's house in a daze. His steps unsteady, his thoughts tangled with everything she had revealed. The wind moved through the forest like a low, restless breath, carrying with it a chill that sank deeper than the skin. He followed a narrow path behind the village. This road was darker, less traveled, as if few people dared to walk it. With every step, the smell of damp earth mixed with the lingering scent of burnt incense. Heavy and suffocating. Then he saw them. Wooden posts stood scattered among the trees, each one driven firmly into the ground. White cloth strips were tied around them, frayed and weathered by time. When the wind blew, the fabric fluttered softly, whispering like distant voices. Somchai approached one of the posts. A name had been written in black ink, blurred by rain and age. Samphong. Anon. Wichai. All men's names. His chest tightened as he recognized the ritual. This was spirit binding, an old Thai practice meant to call back wandering souls. It was only performed when there was no longer any hope of finding the person alive. The deeper Somchai went into the forest. The more posts appeared. Some were newly placed, their cloth still bright white. Others were half-rotted, nearly swallowed by the earth. In several places, multiple strips of cloth were tied to the same post, layered again and again, desperate attempts repeated over the years. Near a cluster of trees, Somchai noticed a small stone marker, half buried in the ground. There was no date, no photograph, only a single line carved into its surface. Those who followed Malai's road. Somchai's legs felt weak. These men had not been murdered. They had walked willingly, step by step, into a path that no longer belonged to the living. Footsteps sounded behind him. He turned. Malai stood a few meters away, her expression calm, almost sorrowful. They weren't bad men, she said quietly. They were just like you. Like me? Somchai whispered. They all carried something unfinished, she replied. And roads they never dared to turn back from. The wind rose suddenly. The white cloth strips whipped violently, wrapping briefly around Somchai's wrists like cold fingers. In that moment, he understood something terrifying. His name was not here. Not yet. But if he stayed one more night, it would be. Chapter 8. The Night of the Blood Moon. Night descended more slowly than it should have, as if the sky itself were prolonging the moment of waiting. Somchai stood at the edge of the forest, his breath shallow, his skin still tingling where the white cloth had brushed against him. When he turned back toward the village, the moon had risen above the treetops. It was full. And it was red. A blood moon. No lights appeared in the village. No voices. No movement. The entire place lay sealed in silence, as though the world itself was holding its breath. Then Somchai heard his name. At first, it came from far away, tangled in the wind, so faint he thought it might have formed inside his head. Somchai. His heart lurched. No one here should have known his name. The voice did not repeat itself. Instead, the scent of jasmine flooded the air, thick and overpowering, making his vision blur. Malai stepped out from the forest. This time, she no longer hid her true form. Under the red moonlight, her skin appeared gray and lifeless. Dark bruises spread across her neck and arms, unmistakable marks of a violent death. Her long hair clung damply to her back, dripping water onto the ground though no rain had fallen. "Now you see," she said, her voice echoing unnaturally. "I'm not hiding anymore." Somchai stepped backward. Each movement felt heavy, as if his feet were sinking into invisible mud. He glanced down and saw his shadow stretch long and distorted beneath the blood-red moon. Malai had no shadow at all. "You don't belong here," Somchai said, forcing the words out. "This isn't your world anymore." Malai laughed softly. The sound was hoarse, hollow, like water filling empty lungs. "And do you think they belong?" she asked, gesturing toward the forest. "They stayed because they wanted to." Around Somchai, figures slowly emerged from the mist. Men. Their faces were blank, their eyes empty. They stood in silence, watching him, waiting. "Stay," Malai whispered. "Here, no one has to go back and face what they left behind." Somchai's chest tightened. Memories he had buried, broken promises, silent departures, unfinished goodbyes, rose unbidden to the surface. For a moment, her words felt comforting. The moon climbed higher. The red light soaked into the trees, the ground, the figures around him. And Somchai realized the truth. The blood moon did not kill. It simply made people choose to stay. Chapter 9. The Buried Truth. The blood moon slowly slipped behind a veil of thick clouds, but the weight it left behind still clung to Somchai's chest. The shadowy figures of the men faded back into the forest, dissolving into mist, until only Somchai and Malai remained. She looked at him for a long time. Her gaze no longer carried seduction. It carried exhaustion, an exhaustion that could only come from decades of waiting without rest. "You want the truth," she said quietly. "Don't you?" Somchai didn't answer, but he didn't turn away either. He knew that if he refused to listen now, he would never leave this place. Malai began to speak. Long ago, when this road was still the only path connecting the village to the town. She had been just a young woman. She loved a man more than her own life. He promised to marry her, promised to take her away from the village, promised they would never lose each other. Promises only matter while someone still wants to keep them. When Malai became pregnant, the man led her into the forest, saying it was a shortcut. Darkness fell quickly, fog thickened, and then he left. She called after him, cried, begged. No one came back. Malai wandered the forest for days, hungry, thirsty, growing weaker with every step. When she reached the cliff, she believed that if she could not return as a living woman, then at least she would not die alone in the dark. Her body was never found. "Do you know what the worst part is?" Malai asked, her voice trembling. It wasn't being abandoned. It was being abandoned while still believing. From that moment, resentment took root, not pure hatred, but endless waiting. The forest remembered it, the road absorbed it, and Malai stopped being human. "I don't seek good men or bad men," she continued. "I only seek those who are capable of leaving." Somchai lowered his head. A memory surfaced, dim but unmistakable. A woman standing in the rain. His promise, his silence, his decision to walk away without looking back. Malai gave a small, sorrowful smile. "You see," she whispered. "This road doesn't choose people. It opens itself to those who have already walked away from someone in the dark." The wind grew stronger. The fog thickened, swallowing the path behind Somchai. He understood then. The truth was not meant to free him. The truth only caused the road to close tighter. Chapter 10. The Road That Runs Backward. Somchai began to run. At first, it was only a hurried walk. Then his steps quickened, until he was sprinting blindly through the forest. The fog thickened behind him, sealing shut like a living thing, while the trees ahead blurred together in endless repetition. No matter which direction he turned, the forest remained the same. The road beneath his feet was changing. It was running backward. Every time Somchai stopped to catch his breath, he found himself standing before the same tree carved with a crooked triangle. The same moss-covered stone shaped like half a human face. It was as if the forest had folded space in on itself, trapping him inside an invisible loop. Footsteps echoed behind him. Not hurried. Not chasing. Slow. Patient. Somchai spun around, but saw only dense mist. His heart pounded violently. In desperation, he began whispering fragments of prayers he barely remembered from childhood. The footsteps stopped. A hand, ice cold, settled on his shoulder. Somchai screamed and turned. There was no one there. Only a faint handprint lingered on his shirt, cold enough to numb his skin. He ran again. The ground sloped downward, leading him into a clearing. There, men stood motionless, their backs turned toward him, arranged in silent rows, all staring into nothingness. "Don't look at them." The old monk's voice echoed inside his mind. Somchai squeezed his eyes shut, but the whispers still slipped through the darkness. "Stay. You don't need to go back. There's no pain here." When he opened his eyes, the road ahead had twisted into a narrow, winding lie, a dark seam cutting through the earth. With every step forward, Somchai felt as though he was walking backward through his own past, toward every moment he had once fled from responsibility. He tripped and fell. As he pushed himself up, he saw his footprints in the dirt. Every single one of them faced the wrong way. The toes pointed toward where he was trying to go. The heels pointed toward where he stood. He wasn't moving forward. He was being pulled deeper. From within the fog, Malaya appeared. Her form was no longer gentle. Cracks ran across her face like frozen water, and her eyes gleamed with a terrifying patience. "There is no exit," she said calmly. "Only a choice." Somchai collapsed to his knees. He finally understood. If he kept running, the road would loop forever. If he stopped, he would become part of it. And in that moment of despair, the monk's warning returned to him with painful clarity. To escape, one must face what binds them, not run from it. Chapter 11. The Final Prayer. Somchai knelt in the middle of the dirt road, both knees sinking into the cold, damp earth. His breathing came in broken gasps, his throat tight as if something invisible were gripping it from within. The forest around him stood unnaturally still, no wind, no sound, as though it was listening. He stopped running. For the first time since stepping onto this road, Somchai remained completely still. The old monk's voice echoed in his mind, no longer a memory but a presence. This road does not keep the innocent. It only keeps those who refuse to face themselves. Somchai bowed his head, his trembling hands pressed against the ground. The soil was cold and wet, carrying a faint metallic scent, the smell of things buried for too long. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm sorry for leaving." Images he had tried to bury surfaced against his will. A woman standing in the rain, gripping his hand, hope and fear mingled in her eyes. Promises spoken in weakness, and later erased by silence. He had walked away. Without explanation. Without looking back. Somchai broke down. His sobs were soundless, his chest convulsing as tears fell freely into the dirt. "I was afraid," he confessed. "Afraid of responsibility. Afraid of losing my freedom. Afraid of staying." The ground beneath his palms trembled slightly. Malai appeared through the mist. This time, she did not approach. She stood at a distance, watching him fall apart. Her face held no rage, only a terrifying emptiness. "Do you think saying sorry is enough?" she asked. Her voice was not cruel. It was tired. Somchai lifted his head and met her gaze without turning away. "No," he said. "But it's the one thing I never did." The air vibrated. From somewhere far away, slow chanting began to rise, deep, steady, ancient. The old monk stood beneath a tree, prayer beads slipping through his fingers as he recited verses meant to untangle resentment. His form flickered, blurred, as though he existed only in memory. "To leave," the monk's voice carried. "You must give up what binds you." Malai closed her eyes. A single dark tear slid from the corner of her eye, falling to the earth and vanishing instantly. "You will not be kept," she said softly. "But you will not be forgiven either." Somchai bowed until his forehead touched the ground. His prayer was not for survival, not for mercy. He prayed only to remember, so that he would never again abandon someone in silence. Chapter 12. The Price of Escape. The chanting slowly faded, and the forest fell into a silence so deep Somchai could hear his own heartbeat. He remained kneeling, his forehead pressed to the ground, afraid to look up. Time passed. How long? He could not tell. When Somchai finally raised his head, the forest had changed. The trees no longer stood tightly packed like prison bars. The fog thinned, retreating little by little, revealing a faint path ahead. In the distance, he saw something impossibly familiar. A paved road. Gray asphalt, worn but real, reflecting the pale light of early morning. An exit. Somchai struggled to his feet. His legs trembled as if he had survived a long illness. He turned, searching for Malai. She was still there. In the weak dawn light, her form appeared thinner, fading, like an old photograph losing its color. Her face no longer carried hatred, but neither did it hold peace. Only an emptiness that had endured far too long. "You may go," she said. "But you must take something of mine with you." Before Somchai could speak, a sudden cold wrapped around his wrist. A white cotton string had been tied tightly around it, old, yellowed, frayed with age, the same kind he had seen hanging in the stilt house, the same kind bound to the posts in the forest. "Do not remove it," Malai whispered. "If you forget, the road will remember for you." Somchai stared at the string. His chest tightened. He understood then, it was not protection. It was a mark. The old monk appeared one last time at the edge of the forest. He nodded gently, his eyes filled with both pity and stern resolve. "Escape is not forgiveness," the monk said. "It is only being allowed to live, and carry the memory." A strong wind surged through the trees. Malai dissolved into the mist, as though she had never existed. The shadows of the men vanished with her, leaving behind a hollow stillness. Somchai stepped toward the paved road. With every step, the string around his wrist seemed to tighten slightly, reminding him that the price of survival was never being allowed to forget. When he finally crossed out of the forest, sunlight struck his face. The world felt normal again. But Somchai knew the truth. He had escaped Malai's road. But Malai had never left him. Chapter 13. Returning to the real world. Somchai woke up on the shoulder of a familiar highway. Cars rushed past him, horns blaring, engines roaring. The morning sun burned harshly against his eyes. Everything felt painfully normal, too loud, too alive, completely unlike the suffocating silence of the forest. His car was still there, parked neatly by the roadside. The engine was running. The clock on the dashboard showed the exact same time it had when he left the bar the night before. Not a single minute had passed. As if everything had been a dream. Somchai stepped out of the car. His legs trembled, his head spinning. He looked down at his wrist. The white string was still there. Old. Frayed. Tied tightly. He tried to pull it off. The string did not break. His skin burned where it dug into his wrist. Finally, he let go, cold sweat forming along his hairline. He drove home in silence. The roads were familiar. The shops, the faces of strangers passing by. Everything was exactly as it should be, yet something was wrong. Something subtly misaligned. At a red light, Somchai caught a glimpse of a woman's reflection in the car window. His heart jumped. He turned. No one was there. Only the faint scent of jasmine lingering inside the car. At home, Somchai showered for a long time, as if trying to wash away the cold that still clung to his skin. But no matter how hot the water was, he couldn't stop shivering. In the mirror, his face looked thinner, more hollow, aged by a single night. That night, he tried to sleep early. As soon as he closed his eyes, he heard footsteps. Soft. Slow. Circling the bed. Creak, creak. Somchai sat up abruptly. The room was empty. The clock read 3 a.m. Always 3 a.m. He pulled the blanket over himself. His heart racing. A familiar whisper slid through his thoughts. "You're home? But the road hasn't forgotten you." The next morning, Somchai went to the police station and asked about the village in the forest. No one had heard of it. No records, no maps. One older officer stared at the white string on Somchai's wrist for a long moment. Then quietly shook his head. "There are places," he said, "that only exist for those who have once lost their way." Somchai left with a heavy feeling in his chest. The real world had accepted him back. But something else still stood at the boundary, watching, waiting. And the most terrifying thought of all was this. He didn't know whether he had truly returned, or if he was only being allowed to live temporarily. Until the road decided to call him again. Chapter 14. The Endless Nightmares. From that night on, Somchai could no longer tell the difference between sleep and waking. Every time he closed his eyes, he found himself driving through the forest again. The road was narrow, the fog thick and suffocating. His headlights were swallowed after only a few meters, as if darkness itself were consuming the light. The clock in the car was always frozen at the same moment. The second hand trembled, but never moved. In the dream, Somchai knew he was dreaming. And yet, he could not wake up. He heard his name being called from both sides of the road, sometimes near, sometimes far. Somchai. The voice was gentle, unhurried, patient. That patience was what terrified him most. Whenever he turned to look, he saw the woman standing by the roadside. The same old silk dress. The same long hair partially covering her face. But her eyes grew deeper each time, like endless wells swallowing everything around them. "You're tired," she said softly in the dream. "Come back." Somchai jolted awake, drenched in sweat. The clock beside his bed read 3 a.m. Always 3 a.m. He sat up, shaking, and pulled back his sleeve. The white string around his wrist had darkened, as though soaked with sweat and memory. Every time he touched it, a sharp pain shot through his head, and the image of the forest road returned instantly. During the day, Somchai tried to live normally. But small things began to feel wrong. He smelled jasmine in the elevator, in the office, in crowded markets. Once, while waiting for a bus, he saw a woman standing at the mouth of an alley across the street. When he blinked, she was gone, leaving behind an emptiness that made it hard to breathe. Somchai told no one. He was afraid that if he spoke about it, the road would know that he still remembered. The worst night came during a heavy rain. In his dream, Somchai returned to the village. This time, every stilt house was sealed shut. No lamps, no voices. Only white strings tied to each wooden pillar. Every single one of them bore his name. He woke up screaming. In the darkness of his bedroom, he heard footsteps, soft, slow, unmistakably familiar, circling his bed. Creak, creak. Somchai clutched his wrist tightly, squeezed his eyes shut, and whispered like a prayer. "I remember. I won't forget." The footsteps stopped. But Somchai understood then. The nightmares were not trying to kill him. They were trying to lead him back. And that road was growing clearer with every passing night. Chapter 15. She is still standing there. Years passed after the night Somchai wandered onto the road that does not exist on any map. He never returned to that forest. He no longer drove alone after dark. And he never drank until his thoughts became careless again. His life grew slower, more cautious, as if every step now required intention. The white string remained tied around his wrist. It never broke, never rotted, never faded. Whenever Somchai thought about removing it, the image of Malai's eyes returned to him, not angry, not pleading, only endlessly waiting, and each time, he stopped. Somchai never told the full story to anyone. At most, he warned younger men, never follow a stranger into the forest. Never drive when your mind is unsteady, and never leave someone behind in silence. Not everyone believed him. From time to time, local news still reported brief notices. A man missing after driving through the mountains. No trace found. No clear exit. People whispered that at dusk, along certain old mountain roads in northern Thailand, a woman could sometimes be seen standing quietly by the roadside. She was beautiful, gentle, always smiling. She offered directions to men who had lost their way. No one knew where she came from, only that if you slowed down, if you stopped, if you lowered your window believing you were merely lost, you would never find your way back to the same road again. One night, Somchai dreamed he was standing far from the forest road. He watched as a young man slowed his car, headlights illuminating a familiar silhouette ahead. The woman was there. Malai turned her head and looked directly at Somchai. For the first time in many years, she smiled, not with longing, not with resentment, just a quiet reminder. When Somchai woke up, morning light filled the room. The white string around his wrist tightened for a brief moment, then loosened as before. Somewhere between fog and shadow, she is still standing by the road. And that road is still waiting for the next man who chooses to lose his way. They say the road is still there. If you drive through the mountains at dusk and see a beautiful woman standing quietly by the roadside, smiling as if she knows you, do not stop. Do not ask for directions. And do not think you are just lost. Because some roads are not meant to take you home. They only exist to test whether you will walk away again. And somewhere in the mist, she is still standing there.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.